Hi, I am Jennifer Ranger, a student success coach. I've worked with elementary aged kids for 8 years, and before that, I worked in a therapeutic treatment center with children that had pretty significant trauma and some pretty extreme behavior. I wanted to share with you a parenting tool that I often share with parents that can be a really helpful way to help parents shape their children's behavior and help kids grow their skills in self control and self regulation. It can help parents to kind of put some parameters on how we're looking at behavior in their children, kind of incentivizing it from the top, kind of creating some structure, and then disincentivizing it from the other side. And helping kids kind of build the skills and understand the process as you go along. But before I dive into that, I want to share a little bit of context to how I came to this strategy and use and where I came from. So first, in 1966, psychologist Diana Baumrind introduced three different parenting typologies. Um, Authoritarian, which is domineering, top-down, unpredictable kind of parenting. Permissive, which is where your kids are your best friends, or you have like children-centered families. Or authoritative. Authoritative is kind of the mission, where that is structured, reliable, predictable, but also warm and loving. And then in the 80s, Eleanor McCoby and John Martin added a fourth typology, which is called either neglectful or uninvolved. When I was growing up, it felt like me and many people around me experienced kind of the authoritarian style of parenting and a combination of permissive and uninvolved. I had a lot of freedom. Well, people my age had a lot of freedom. We went out, we were in nature. I spent my days in nature. I would leave my home in the morning after breakfast, and I would come home at night when I was starving after having played the entire day. My parents just oftentimes didn't see me all summer. But if there was a problem, instead of teaching me how to act and bringing me along and building skills, when something went wrong, they were unpredictably rash in their like punitive and be really upset, huge, explosive, unpredictable, angry parent behaviors. And this seemed common to my age. But then something happened, and we had a shift in our culture, and it became child centered families where all of the activities was geared towards the children. All of the sporting events were towards the children. Children's were friends. You instead of top down demanding, we're teaching kids about feelings, and really feelings were leading the way. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We kind of need a combination of having some rules, expectations, but we also want to teach kids how to act and legitimize their feelings, but then help them understand pro-social ways to manage their feelings. So, what do we want to take from each of these different parenting styles? My school, my generation, we need kids to explore the world. We need them to have some freedom, some independence. We want them to get out and engage with other kids and with peers and learn how to act and learn how to integrate their brain and their body and have experiences in the world. We also, from my generation, we need consequences. We need discipline. We need predictable consequences and discipline for unsafe and disrespectful behaviors. It's so important for kids to know that adults are ultimately in charge and the adults have their back. It's very, very important. However, it's still important. We want to take away from the next generation. It's important for kids to understand how they feel and what to do when they have excessive energy or emotion that is manifesting in a like an pro-social way. We want to help them develop the skills to recognize their body and their brain, what's happening, and make good choices in a productive way. So, I like to sit down with families and work with them to kind of map out some of the consequences for different behaviors before they happen. This helps children to predict what the response will be and understand that they can learn and grow and correct and change their behavior. We typically sit down together and we brainstorm some of the behaviors that have been happening and what the natural consequences will be and what the parent-directed consequences will be. In this way, we don't have to come up with 11 logic consequences on the spot because that is so hard. It's so hard to be met with the behavior, and then we erratically will say, no devices for the next 20 days, and then your kids will have homework that they need to do on their device. Or you might have a consequence of like no playing with your friends, but then really your children need to have time with their peers to develop their social skills. So sitting down with a tool that I'm about to show you, working as a family, can help your children understand beforehand what the consequences will be, and it can create a lot of reliability and predictability. So I like to make a chart like this. I like to make a big chart in your family and hang it up someplace and add to it as you see different behaviors happening. And the first column is for unsafe or disrespectful behavior. And I've put in a couple of examples here. So the first one is yelling and throwing when I want something. So then we want to think about the consequences for those actions. There's both natural consequences and adult-directed consequences. So a natural consequences of yelling and throwing things is that other kids don't want to play with me, or that they think that I am unsafe. And I like to really get kids involved in this process and find out from them other consequences they may think would happen from some of these behaviors. Ultimately, the parents are the ones that will employ the consequences, but I like to get the kids predicting what might happen and contributing to this list as well. An adult-led consequence here could be a loss of privilege like device time. Then it doesn't stop there. The kids have a responsibility to repair the harm after they have had a behavior that is prosocial. This is part of helping them to rewire their brain to start making the correct behavior that they would like to act instead. So you can help them to come up with how they would actually write an honest apology. You can help them kind of do the Oreo cookie. You write something nice, then you write the meat of your apology, and then something nice again at the end, and get used to that format because it can help them to map out and problem solve what is happening and the interactions between other people. And then a parent-directed consequence could also be to repair the harm, would be to do a service or to give time back and provide a service work to my family. Then here's the important column. How do I want to act instead? And this one is the one that you want to practice as many times as you can throughout your life. If your kids have a history of yelling and throwing things, then we want to practice instead working for things that I want this helps them build stamina and resilience. So this is like, even at home you can come up with a star chart around asking for things that I want, or working towards things that kids want instead of demanding and yelling and throwing. Another behavior is using aggressive or unsafe behaviors like hitting my brother when I am mad. And the consequence for this would be, I really like to teach kids that some of the behaviors they have when they're young, when you translate it into what they would look like as an adult, there can be some severe consequences. So if you're 5 years old and you hit your brother, that is kind of developmentally appropriate. We're going to teach you how to act. But if you had that same behavior as a 45-year-old adult, if you hit somebody as a 45-year-old adult, you would get in trouble. You could get fired from a job. You could get in trouble with the police. That is a pretty severe that's a pretty severe action. And every action that we take, we are wiring our brain to continue that pattern. So we don't want to wire our brain to continue a pattern of hitting when we are frustrated. It's important that we stop that behavior. So the consequence should be pretty severe. So I would work with your child to come up with a consequence beforehand, like, for example, taking away devices or videos for a couple of days, or a certain number of days. And then how would you repair that? I would have the child work with you to write out a plan for what they would do when they start to get upset. They could write their own social story to describe what actions they need to take to step away or to step back, or take a break, and what could they do in service to the other person. They could do chores. And how do they want to act instead? I like to show kids that if somebody comes with a escalated or aggressive behavior to them, if they come back either the same or more escalated, the whole situation is going to continue escalating. But instead, we can't control how people come at us. Instead, if we step down our response, be calmer than the person who's coming at us, then we can de-escalate situations. We are not in control of how other people come at us in the world. We are only in control of our own actions. So we want to practice using our words and saying something like, please stop, or walk away when my brother is bothering me. This chart, as you fill it out and use it in your home, can really help you to come up with consequences. It can help create some consistency and predictability. It looks simple, but it can be a very effective tool for mapping out how to respond to behaviors, especially if you build in an incentive for the positive behaviors along with this. Thanks so much.